What if just 5 minutes a day could change how your body handles stress? From breathwork to nature to a simple hug, this episode reveals the science behind the small habits that calm your nervous system and protect your peace.
Please hit that subscribe button now and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Don't forget to check the description below for links to our trusted sponsors and ways you can support the show. You know what's fascinating? Studies show that 77% of people regularly experience physical symptoms caused by stress, yet most of us only spend about 1% of our day actively managing it. Today, we're exploring why that needs to change.
Those numbers are pretty eye-opening, and what's really interesting is how our bodies process stress on a biological level.
Well, let me tell you about what happens in our bodies when we're stressed. Our system gets flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, which worked great for our ancestors running from predators, but now it's triggered by everything from work deadlines to social media notifications.
That's fascinating. And those stress hormones can stay elevated for hours, right? Even after the stressful situation has passed?
Exactly, right. Research from the American Institute of Stress shows that prolonged exposure to these stress hormones can increase our risk of heart disease by up to 40%. And here's what's really wild. About 75% of doctors' visits are for stress-related ailments.
Those statistics are honestly pretty alarming. What are some of the early warning signs people should watch for?
Well, the tricky thing is that stress manifests differently for everyone. Some people get these tension headaches. I used to get them all the time when I was working in finance. Others might notice changes in their sleep patterns, digestive issues, or even weird muscle aches.
Speaking of sleep patterns, I recently read that poor sleep due to stress creates this vicious cycle where lack of sleep actually makes us more susceptible to stress the next day.
Oh man, that's so true. And get this, studies show that just one night of poor sleep can increase anxiety levels by up to 30%. But here's where it gets interesting. There are some really simple techniques that can break this cycle.
You know, I've heard about various stress management techniques, but I'm curious about what actually works based on the research.
Well, let me share something surprising. A study from Harvard Medical School found that just 10 minutes of deep breathing can reduce cortisol levels by up to 50%. It's literally like hitting a reset button for your nervous system.
That's remarkable for such a simple technique. How exactly should people approach deep breathing for maximum benefit?
So here's the method that's backed by research. Inhale for a count of 4, hold for 7, and exhale for 8. They call it the 4-7-8 technique. Studies show it activates your parasympathetic nervous system within just 1 minute.
Well, that seems incredibly doable. What other science-backed techniques have you come across?
Here's something fascinating. Researchers at the University of Michigan found that a 20-minute walk in nature reduces stress hormone levels by about 10% more than the same walk in an urban setting. They're calling it the nature pill.
That makes me think about how our ancestors spent so much more time outdoors. Maybe we're just not wired for all this indoor time.
You know what's interesting about that? Anthropologists estimate that our ancestors spent about 80% of their waking hours outside. Today, the average American spends 93% of their time indoors. It's no wonder our stress response system is going haywire.
That really puts things in perspective. How do you think our modern lifestyle has impacted our ability to handle stress?
Well, here's a mind-blowing statistic. The average person today processes more information in one day than someone in the 1400s did in their entire lifetime. Our brains are literally dealing with an unprecedented amount of input.
That's absolutely incredible, and probably explains why mindfulness has become such a hot topic.
Speaking of mindfulness, let me share something surprising. A study from UCLA found that regular mindfulness practice can actually change the physical structure of your brain in just 8 weeks, specifically in areas related to stress response.
Well, that's fascinating. How exactly does that work?
So they found that mindfulness increases the density of gray matter in the hippocampus, which helps with learning and memory, while reducing it in the amygdala, our fear center. But here's what's really cool. You don't need to meditate for hours to see benefits.
That's encouraging. What's the minimum effective dose, so to speak?
Research suggests that even 5 to 10 minutes daily can make a significant difference. And here's something unexpected. Studies show that consistency matters more than duration. Doing 5 minutes every day is actually more beneficial than doing 35 minutes once a week.
That really challenges the notion that stress management has to be time-consuming.
Exactly. And let me share another quick win. Studies show that simply hugging someone for 20 seconds releases oxytocin, which naturally lowers stress levels. The research on human touch is pretty remarkable.
That's really interesting. What other simple physical interventions have been studied?
Well, here's something fascinating from recent research. Progressive muscle relaxation, where you systematically tense and relax different muscle groups, can reduce anxiety levels by up to 30% in just 15 minutes.
How exactly does someone get started with that technique?
So you start with your toes, tense them for 5 seconds, then release. Then move up to your calves, thighs, and so on. But here's what's really interesting. They found that doing this before a stressful event can actually prevent the stress response from fully activating.
That's really practical advice. What about the role of nutrition in stress management?
Oh man, this is where it gets really interesting. Recent studies have shown that certain foods can actually help regulate our stress response. For example, foods high in omega-3s can reduce cortisol levels by up to 20%.
That makes me wonder about the whole gut-brain connection we hear so much about.
Well, check this out. About 95% of our serotonin, our feel-good hormone, is actually produced in our gut, and stress can significantly disrupt this production. That's why so many people experience digestive issues when they're stressed.
That really highlights how interconnected our body's systems are.
Absolutely right. And here's something else that might surprise you. Research shows that just changing your posture can affect your stress levels. Standing in a power pose for 2 minutes can decrease cortisol levels by about 25%.
That's fascinating. Any other quick physical interventions that have been studied?
Well, here's one that surprised me. Humming or singing can actually stimulate your vagus nerve, which helps activate your relaxation response. They found that just 30 seconds of humming can measurably reduce stress levels.
These are all such accessible techniques. What about the role of social connections in stress management?
That's actually one of the most powerful factors. Studies show that people with strong social support systems have a 50% lower mortality rate. But here's what's really interesting. It's not just about having friends. It's about the quality of those connections.
That makes me think about how our modern way of connecting through social media might impact stress levels.
Well, you're onto something there. Research shows that people who spend more than 2 hours a day on social media have significantly higher stress levels than those who don't. But here's the twist. Using social media to maintain meaningful connections actually can reduce stress.
So it's really about how we use these tools, not just the tools themselves.
Exactly. And speaking of tools, let me share one final piece of research that I find fascinating. Studies show that simply writing down your stressors for 10 minutes can reduce their emotional impact by up to 40%.
That's a powerful reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions can be the most effective.
Well, that brings us full circle to where we started. Stress management doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. It's about finding what works for you and making it part of your daily routine.
And remembering that even small changes can make a big difference in how we feel and function.
Exactly right. As we wrap up, I think the key takeaway is that stress management is really about building a toolkit of simple, evidence-based techniques that you can use whenever you need them.
And knowing that taking care of our stress levels isn't just about feeling better, it's about protecting our long-term health and well-being.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wellness Lab Digest. If this episode helped you, here are 3 quick ways to support the show. 1. Subscribe to stay updated with fresh, body-loving wellness insights. 2. Share this episode with a friend who needs this today. 3. Comment below and tell us what topics you'd love to hear next. Want to do even more? Check the video description for ways to support the show. Stay curious, stay well, and we'll see you in the next episode.